Welcome to the Berry Conservation District Conservation Friday. Today we have Nicolette Sexton, a graduate student at Western Michigan University and a Huron Pines AmeriCorps member serving the Michigan Natural Features Inventory. Today she's going to talk about Michigan Vernal Pool.
All right, thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Nicolette Sexton, and I'm here to talk to you about vernal pools and how you can get involved in their monitoring and conservation efforts. There we go. So just a quick background on me. Like Rachel said, I'm a master's student at Western Michigan University, and I'm studying the ecology of bats and their parasites. I've also worked on several other projects, including the management of red swamp crayfish with the BCK SISMA. I've also been serving as a Huron Pines AmeriCorps member with the Michigan Natural Features Inventory this year, where I've been conducting various wildlife surveys and have been heavily involved in their vernal pool education effort. There we go. So if you've real quick never heard of it, AmeriCorps is a network of local, state, and national service programs that engages Americans each year in service to meet our country's critical needs. So kind of think the Peace Corps, but in America instead of other countries. And they focus on lots of different areas, including disaster relief, education, health, and the environment. So Huron Pines then is a conservation nonprofit organization, and they manage a group of AmeriCorps members that serve in specifically the natural resources field across the state. So you can see here on our map, we're kind of spread out all over the lower peninsula, and we serve at various different sites, including DNR offices, land conservancies, and a bunch of other environmental organizations as well. So real quick introduction to the Michigan Natural Features Inventory, which I'll probably call MNFI because it is a mouthful. MNFI is an extension of MSU and is Michigan's Natural Heritage Program. They collect and manage data on rare, threatened, and endangered species and natural communities in Michigan. They then interpret and analyze data, both that they collect themselves and from other sources in order to increase knowledge and to inform conservation efforts. And then they house the Natural Heritage Database, which is the most comprehensive GIS-based database of endangered, threatened, and special concern species and natural communities in Michigan. So this database is really important and is used by diverse partners and stakeholders in order to help inform and guide management and conservation decisions. So as I said, MNFI collects data on rare, threatened, and endangered flora and fauna found in Michigan, such as the eastern Massasauga rattlesnake and the dwarf lake iris pictured above, and then natural communities such as prairie fens as pictured on the bottom left. In addition to these, MNFI has undertaken a project to study the flora and fauna that utilize an understudied type of wetland as well, known as vernal pools, and that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. So you might be asking, what exactly is a vernal pool? So they're often also called ephemeral pools or wetlands, and they are a special type of wetland that are seasonally flooded. And this means that they are wet for part of the year, and then they are dry for the other part of the year. Because they dry up, fish cannot survive in them, and this is really important because fish can be voracious predators in wetland and other aquatic ecosystems. So without this fish predation, it allows species to live in vernal pools that couldn't survive in wetlands or water bodies that contain fish. So this allows for some really unique species to occur in vernal pools. So as I said, vernal pools are seasonally flooded. They fill with water from a variety of sources, including rain and snowmelt, groundwater, surface runoff, overbank flooding, and intermittent streams that dry up. They usually fill with water in the spring, but can also fill with water in late fall and winter. So if you see here, if you went to this location in May, you could see it inundated with water. It definitely looks like some sort of wetland, but if you go back in late summer or fall to the same location, you might not even know that that would be a wetland if you don't know what you're looking for. So some pools, however, are semi-permanent, so they won't dry up every year. So some might dry up every 3 out of 5 years or only during drought years. Because of this, the definition of vernal pools is constantly changing as we gain more information about them. But currently for the state of Michigan, our definition of vernal pools is that they must hold water for at least 2 months. So there are 5 key characteristics of vernal pools that we look for in Michigan. And number 1, as I already said, that they are seasonally flooded. 2 is that they are small and shallow. They're generally less than 2.5 acres across, and most are less than 1 meter deep as well. They also must be geographically isolated, and this just basically means that they need to be a confined basin or depression with no continuous connections to a permanent water body. So they could have temporary connections to a permanent water body, but those connections must dry up at some point for it to be considered a vernal pool still. 4, as I already mentioned, the lack of fish, and then 5 is the presence of indicator species. So some species are only found in or rely on vernal pools for their survival, or they just do better in vernal pools when compared to other wetlands or water bodies that contain fish. So we refer to these species as vernal pool indicator species, and the presence of these species can help us indicate that a particular wetland might be a vernal pool. So there are 4 vernal pool indicator species that we look for in Michigan, and these are fairy shrimp, blue spotted and spotted salamanders, and wood frogs. And these species are considered those indicator species because vernal pools are their preferred breeding habitat, where their reproductive success is the greatest. So blue spotted salamanders, and wood frogs can all utilize other wetlands or water bodies as well to reproduce, but they lack a chemical protectant on their eggs that a lot of other amphibians that utilize water bodies with fish have. So they're heavily predated upon by fish in those locations. So vernal pools is where they do their best. Fairy shrimp, on the other hand, only live in vernal pools, so they overwinter as eggs, which are deposited by adults on the pool bottom while the pool is full of water. And the eggs need to dry out before they will even hatch. So if you see fairy shrimp in a pool, it's a very good indicator that that pool must have dried out at some point. So why is it important to conserve vernal pools? Number 1, they just provide critical habitat for wildlife. They're often considered the coral reefs of northeastern forests because they have a diverse amount of wildlife and plant species that utilize them. These species also include rare species such as Blanding's turtles, spotted turtles, red-shouldered hawks, all kinds of other amphibians and reptiles. Lots of bats utilize them as well. All kinds of different organisms utilize them. 2 is that they provide ecosystem services such as nutrient cycling, flood and erosion control, and they store water and can also improve water quality as well. And then 3, they're of social and educational value. They're generally pretty easy to study, to work in, and to get others involved in. They're pretty easy to capture people's interest. I've seen many children and adults alike lighten up when they see all of the diverse little invertebrates swimming around in a sample that they've collected from a vernal pool. And in general, they're really good to inspire people to learn about and help conserve both wetlands and forests. So as you may know, there has been a dramatic loss of wetlands across Michigan. Between the years 1800 and 2005, Michigan lost around 40% of its wetlands. Luckily, this wetland loss has slowed since the 1980s, largely due to some regulations and increased awareness and support for wetland protection and restoration, but some wetland types are still not adequately protected, and they kind of fall through the cracks of these regulations, and this is the case with vernal pools. So due to limited information and awareness of vernal pools, and as I mentioned, they are difficult to identify in the field, definitely depending on what time of year you go to visit them, there is very limited protection for them in Michigan. So our current state regulations only protect vernal pools that are connected to or are within a certain distance to the Great Lakes, inland lakes, ponds, rivers, or streams, or if they are greater than 5 acres in size, or if they contained threatened or endangered species. So many vernal pools do not fit these current criteria and are not protected under the current state regulations. So there are a lot of threats that are causing loss and degradation of vernal pools in Michigan, and these include land development, roads, which cause fragmentation of wetland complexes, and large amounts of mortality of wildlife that utilize the pools, especially things like salamanders, turtles, and snakes. They are often also converted into permanent ponds, and that includes adding fish to the ponds, which is devastating to the organisms within. Timber harvesting, pollution, especially chemical pollutants, can really impact the different invertebrates and amphibians and reptiles in the pools, invasive plant and animal species, and climate change. So what is being done to protect vernal pools in Michigan? So from 2011 to present day, some organizations across Michigan have been mapping potential vernal pools using aerial photo interpretation, as you can see here. This is kind of how they've been trying to map them. And these have generally been in targeted project areas and areas that are easy to study, so it has not been implemented statewide. So here you can see our Michigan Vernal Pool database. As you can see, there are a lot of places missing across our map. So we definitely need more mapping to be done, and that's what the Michigan Vernal Pool Patrol has been helping to achieve. So the Michigan Vernal Pool Patrol is a statewide community science-based vernal pool mapping and monitoring program that was launched in 2012, and it utilizes trained volunteers that help to verify potential vernal pools, map pools, collect data on pools, and monitor vernal pools over time. So all that collected data that all of these volunteers are collecting for us is going into that Michigan Vernal Pool database and helping to fill it out. So the goals of this program, number one is just to enhance the information and knowledge of vernal pools in Michigan. As I said, they're very understudied, so just collecting this information helps everyone learn more about vernal pools. Two is to increase the awareness and understanding of the importance of vernal pools to both wetland and forest ecosystems. And then three is to increase the engagement of the public, especially we're trying to get a lot of youth involved in the natural resources field. And then finally is just to inform, guide, and enhance the management and conservation of vernal pools in Michigan, and maybe get some of those regulations changed a bit. So the Vernal Pool Patrol is coordinated by the Michigan Natural Features Inventory in partnership with the Michigan Vernal Pool Partnership, local program coordinators, and community partners, as you can see by all of these logos up here, and then different schools, colleges, and universities. So we have coordinators in various counties across the state that help to coordinate Vernal Pool Patrol volunteers in their monitoring efforts. So we have a current Berry County coordinator that's with Pierce Cedar Creek. So you could reach out to them if you're interested, or reach out if you're also interested in becoming a coordinator as well. So I won't go too in-depth in this short presentation about our sampling and monitoring techniques, but I'll provide a link at the end of the presentation where you can find all of that information. But in general, we request that volunteers make 2, but preferably 3 field visits to each potential vernal pool. So visit 1 should be in the early spring, and this is just to verify if a potential vernal pool is actually a vernal pool based on those 5 key characteristics that I mentioned, and to document any indicator species that might be present. So often at this first visit, you might see berry shrimp if they're going to be present in that pool. Visit 2 would be in late spring, and this would be again to look for indicator species using that pool. And you can also go back and look at known pools to see how they've changed over time as well. And then visit 3 should occur in late summer and is used to document the vegetation that's growing around or within the pool, and to document whether the pool is drying up or has dried up already. So in early April of each year, MNFI offers a series of virtual and in-person trainings, and this helps to get new volunteers and program coordinators interested in monitoring vernal pools. So since 2012, there have been over 2,000 trained participants and over 300 community scientists and partners that have been involved in the program. And of the over 5,000 potential vernal pools that were mapped using that aerial photo mapping that I showed before, in Michigan, in the database, over 700 of these have been verified as vernal pools. And in 2022, our community scientists performed 466 site visits and added 221 new vernal pools to the database. So here is just that link that I said I would provide. It is to our Vernal Pool Patrol hub site. Here you can view more information about the Vernal Pool Patrol. You can view that Michigan Vernal Pool database, look for pools near you that you might want to monitor. And if you're interested, you could sign up for the Vernal Pool Patrol or contact someone about becoming a coordinator too, if you're interested. In addition, there are a lot of different training resources on the website. So the recorded virtual trainings from April of this year are on that website, as well as a bunch of different resources to help you learn about vernal pools and how to monitor them are on there as well. And it's definitely not too late to start looking for potential vernal pools this year or to start monitoring pools near you. So I just wanted to say thank you for having me. If there's any questions, I can answer any questions. I've put my email here. If you guys have any questions later or are interested and want to learn more, I also have the email of our GIS specialist at MNFI up here as well. She's heavily involved with the Vernal Pool Patrol as well and can help with any technical issues if you're trying to get involved as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. That was really cool. We do have one question.
Okay.
Zach wants to know if there are any turtles. You mentioned indicator species for vernal. Are any of the turtles you mentioned indicator species for vernal pools?
So no, the most of the turtles will use a bunch of different types of wetlands. So the amphibians that I mentioned, they're pretty specific to the vernal pools. They do their best there, they lay their eggs there, and they aren't predated upon by the fish. Turtles will utilize vernal pools, but they'll use all kinds of different wetlands, so they won't help you really indicate whether or not it's a vernal pool.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm not seeing any other questions. We will end the recording.